Interest rates are high, sellers are nervous, and the deals that looked like gold a year ago, they are sitting and collecting dust. But here's the opportunity. Motivated sellers make mistakes. And when you know what those mistakes look like, especially the things they say to their agents, you can read between the lines and negotiate better deals. You'll recognize when a seller's listing is built on ego instead of numbers. You'll spot that overpriced test the market listing in no time. And you'll know when a seller is desperate but doesn't want to admit it. And if you're brand new to real estate investing, this is even more important because eventually you'll be selling that rental. So let's go through the 10 things that people say to their real estate agents that absolutely destroy their deals and their chance of buying a good deal or selling their property. Okay, here's a mistake I see all the time. We'll pick whatever agent thinks they can sell it for the most. Sounds smart, right? I mean, you want the highest return, so why wouldn't you want the agent that's going to give you the highest number? Here's what really happens behind the scenes. And don't forget, I was a real estate agent for several years back in the early 2000s, so I know all of these tricks from personal experience. Agents know that you want the highest price for your house, and anybody would. And they know that that high price is your ego talking. So some agents, unfortunately, a lot of agents will promise a sky high number just to get you to sign that listing agreement. Then 2 weeks later, when nothing's happening, or 4 weeks later at the most, you get the phone call that, hey, your property, we got to start talking about doing a price improvement. And now you're stuck in a 6-month agreement with this listing agent and your property's losing steam because it wasn't priced right to begin with. And now it's old news. Let me tell you what happened to my neighbor just a few months ago. She listed her house in the middle of winter. It was overpriced, but her agent said, oh, don't worry, we can get that price. We can list it for that. Within a few days, they did get an offer, but it was $70,000 below their list price. And guess what? 6 months later, they didn't get another offer. They did one price drop. But then the market changed. We entered into a buyer's market. They took their property off the market, never sold, and now they're renting it. They would have been better off pricing it correctly from the get-go instead of pricing it high just to get the seller to sign the listing agreement. So if you're looking into buying real estate right now, pay attention to this one. Look for listings that are 30 days old and overpriced. There might not actually be something wrong with the property. It could have just been the listing agent promised the seller a high price and isn't delivering. And that's where you can come in with a realistic offer that they might accept. Okay, now a lot of sellers say this to their listing agent and they really shouldn't. And they say, we're not really in a rush to sell. So the truth is, when a seller says that, they're not really interested in selling. They're just testing the market to see how much their house is worth. And honestly, that's fine. But as a listing agent, I wouldn't want to have that listing. I recently made an offer on a property that had been sitting for 6 months. They only did one price drop. We came in pretty low with our offer. It was what it's worth, but they didn't even respond. So what do you do if you're that buyer? Just don't take it personally. Some sellers need time to come to their senses, and sometimes they just never will. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job as the buyer making the offer is to just continually follow up, and maybe it'll work out and maybe it doesn't. But don't get emotionally attached to offers. Now, the next one is pretty sneaky. And this is when you're thinking about listing your house for sale and your friend has recommended a real estate agent. And the real estate agent comes over to talk to you, the seller, for the listing appointment, and you tell the listing agent, oh, you're the only agent that we're talking to. And as soon as you say that, that's the moment that that listing agent stops trying hard. Because why would they go all out with their strategy, their marketing material, say they'll pay for the 360 video and all the professional photos and do open houses every weekend? If there's no competition, you're not interviewing everybody else and they've got the listing in the bag. Listen, agents work harder when they know they're being compared, and you want them to put their best foot forward, whether or not you already know them and have a recommendation. You want them to feel like they have to earn your business, because that's when you see who actually has a strategy versus someone who's just going to put it on the MLS and then wait for phone calls. So this is what you say instead. Even if your friend has recommended an agent, you say, we're interviewing a couple agents. We want to see who brings in the strongest marketing plan and is the right fit for our goals. That line changes everything. Now they show up differently. They prep. They come with their A game to the listing appointment because they know you might pick somebody else and they want the listing. And as a buyer, when you spot a property on the market that has terrible photos, barely a description, the agents hardly answer their phone, it could be because of a result of this. The agents didn't have to put their best foot forward. because they had the listing in the bag. So this is your opportunity as a buyer. Even if you see a listing with no photos, terrible quality photos, which we all know we've seen, don't disregard the property or think something's wrong. Remember, photos, yes, a picture says 1,000 words, but nothing says truth like visiting the property in person or having your agent visit in person if you're too far away. So give those listings a chance if you're looking to buy. Don't disregard because of the poor presentation with photos, etc. Now, sometimes the problem isn't the agent, and a lot of times it's not. Sometimes it really is the house itself. So if you want to know which properties to avoid, no matter how good the deal sounds, you definitely want to check out this video that I made called Never Buy These Types of Houses for a Real Estate Investment. I'll put the link up here and also down in the description below. But if you've got a friend, and usually listings come with recommendations, who recommends a listing agent to you, and you just go with them blindly, and you say, oh, we trust you, you sold our friend's house, let's just skip the formalities and let's just sign the agreement. I mean, I get it. It feels respectful, right? You don't want to be like, oh, prove to me you're good enough, even though you know your friend did a good job for them. I know you think that's the right move, but sometimes that costs you. The listing agents skip paying for staging. They use their iPhone for photos instead of paying several $100s for professional photographers. And then you're the one stuck with a stale listing, terrible photos, and no offers. Because if you'll accept the bare minimum, then why not? So don't be that seller. Don't trust blindly. Ask for the marketing plan. Get everything they promise to do for you in writing. Because whether you're buying or selling, presentation makes a difference. And you don't want to leave money on the table either way. All right. Now, a lot of people walk into a listing conversation and they ask the agent, is this a good time to sell? And without missing a beat, the listing agent goes, absolutely. I mean, I know I'm always touting it's a good time to sell, but that's for different reasons. Now, is a listing agent lying? Not necessarily, right? I mean, it's a good time to sell if you have to sell. But according to the market, is it always a good time to sell? Maybe, maybe not. But let's be real. What else are they going to say? I mean, they only get paid if they say yes. So that's why you can't really take anything that they say for any worth when you ask them that question. So instead, you have to do your own research first and answer that question yourself. Check the days on the market for similar homes that sold. How long did it take to sell? What was their average price per square foot? How much did they get for the property compared to their listing price? Something you could ask a listing agent instead to gauge their knowledge level is saying, given that inventory is high and rates are still going up, what's your strategy to sell my home? Now that question changes the entire conversation because now they know you're informed. You're not asking, oh, is it a good time to sell? You're talking about facts, not feelings. And now they have to show up with not just some hype answer, they have to show up with stats and figures and comps and a packet full of information. So another one that trips up new sellers is this one. And this especially trips up new home sellers or new investors that are selling their first property. And they say this, so how long is a listing agreement for? 6 months, right? And just like that, they sign over a 6-month contract. But guess what? There is no standard. It could be 4 days. It could be 2 months. It could be a month, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 months, 3 months, whatever you decide. You as a seller, you're the one that has control. Yeah, most people will sign for a 6-month agreement, but you don't have to do that. Most agents will default to 6 months because if they are spending a lot of time and money, right, putting together that brilliant marketing plan and hiring the stager and paying for staging if they do that, and paying for the 360 photos and the photographer and the drone video footage and all that, that might cost a pretty penny. And if you're only going to give them a month to sell it, that investment into your property might not be worth it for them. So they want to have a longer chance to try and sell your home. But really, if they're not coming to the table of putting their own money into any marketing, why would you just blindly give them a 6-month listing? Remember, this is your investment. You're hiring them. You're not signing a contract to do them a favor. And honestly, if you mention a shorter time frame and they give you any pushback, you want to inquire why. And like I said, especially if they're not putting in any of their own funds, all they're really going to be doing is taking some photos themselves, putting them on the MLS and writing a description, which nowadays are all written with ChatGPT. And then they let the MLS take over and just field calls and showings. There's not tons of work that's done. And honestly, another little tip here, most open houses are for the listing agents to get buyers, more buyers and sellers for themselves. not really to sell your home. There's a less than a 1% chance that your home is sold through someone that came through an open house. So even them saying, well, I'm going to do open houses, well, that's for them, really, not for you, the seller. All right, now this phrase I really love because this one will tell you if you're working with a real estate professional or not. All right, you're the seller and you're interviewing some listing agents, and you say, as a seller, I think my property should list for 425, maybe 450 if the right buyer comes along. Just stop after you say that and listen to what they say, because what they say next will tell you everything you need to know about them. If they nod and say, oh, yeah, we can get you that, without pulling a single comp or showing you any hard facts, that's not a strategist. That's a salesperson just trying to get your listing. They're just telling you what you want to hear. Then in 2 weeks' time, they start chipping at you. Well, we're not getting any offers, and I think we probably should talk about lowering the price. And then before you know it, your housing price comes right back down to what it probably should have been listed at in the beginning. But what have you done to yourself? You've lost the first 2 weeks at the most important time in your listing. And that is the first 2 weeks it's listed, because that's the hot time and that's when you get the most activity, and you just wasted it. So if you have a professional agent, they won't nod and say, oh, yeah, we can get that. They'll say, well, I don't know. Why don't we look at the comps? Here you go. Here's what neighboring houses have sold for, similar to yours, square footage. I think based on the data, we probably should list it at X, Y, or Z. Now, that as a listing agent, you should pay attention to. Now, let's talk about this from the side of the buyer. When you see a listing that's been sitting and there's been no movement, when you have your agent call and they haven't received any offers, or a property that's had multiple price drops, odds are the seller just listed it too high based on ego, and the listing agent agreed. But as a buyer, that's your edge. Now, remember, sometimes the seller is just testing the market, but other times they don't know any better. But now the seller is frustrated. They've missed their momentum window, and now you can come in with clear, data-driven information presented with your offer on why you're offering that price. And the seller might come to their senses now and potentially agree to sell it for the price actually worth. Now, this one goes for both buyers and sellers. Keep your financials close. Do not disclose how much money you have to your listing agent or your agent if you're the buyer. If you're the buyer and you tell your agent, oh, we've got $200,000 sitting in the bank, they might not do anything intentionally with that information, but unintentionally, it's in there that you have the money. So suddenly, they're just not fighting quite as hard for your deals and your offer prices as they used to. I mean, why would they? They know you can afford it, and they assume you've got some wiggle room, even though you don't say that out loud. You've said it before that you have the money, that your offer is close to your max, close to what you can afford. They push harder. They get creative. They start thinking, how can I get this deal to close? I want my commission check. How can I get this deal to close? These buyers are at their max price point. What can I do for them? Because it's at that point they think the numbers matter. Even if you have extra money in the bank, they think you don't, so they try harder. Same thing goes if you're the seller. You tell your agent you've got plenty of cash, or, oh, we're fine either way, or we don't need to sell. Well, now they're not as aggressive to get your property sold. Real estate is a game of leverage, and most people give their leverage away with a few careless words. They over-explain, they overshare, they try to sound confident, but really they're kind of sounding desperate. Or even worse, they try to sound chill and like not in a rush, and they don't do as much work. So if you're buying your first rental property, this stuff matters now, because it helps you to read between the lines and know if a listing is weak, the seller is failing, if the agent's just phoning it in. And when it's your turn to sell one day, you won't be the one making these mistakes. You'll ask better questions. You won't say the wrong things. You'll be more in control, and you'll actually get the deal you want. If this video helped you see the game even just a little bit differently, do all the things, like, comment, subscribe, share this video with others, and hey, tell me something down below. What's the cringiest thing you've ever heard an agent say to their client? Let's compare notes, and let's help people stop leaving more money on the table. And if you want help buying your first rental property the right way, I've got a free masterclass down the link below to help you get started. And until next time, keep building your wealth brick by brick.